All right, perfect. Just gonna test out the audio as always. Sounds good. Okay. So, I don't even know where to begin. Let me mute myself. I was trying to put together basically a 1-minute cut down of all of this for Instagram, and I'm gonna do it. But holy crap, there's so much information. It's hard to do, it's hard to put together. So I'm frazzled and fizzled from working on that. Let's see here. Actually, I wonder how we can share these results with you all. So, I wonder, can I, oh, that's interesting. Share. There it is. So take a look here. So we had an amazing amount of people voting this. This was posted across my Instagram and then across YouTube as well. One of the most amazing things, so obviously we're just gonna start with the results from the poll. You all love Tretinoin. Tretinoin is blue here. So almost a third of you picked Tretinoin as your go-to, which, maybe we're doing our work. Maybe that means that we're doing something right because it's extremely effective, it's consistent, and I think people get what they look for. The second one that blew my mind though, this is Adapalene. Adapalene was the second most picked as your go-to retinoid, and that blew my mind. After that, CeraVe's Resurfacing Serum was by far, like a strong second, and then after that, we had a mixture of like Paula's Choice and the ordinary Retinol and Squalane, which was different from their Granactive Retinol, and then also Aveen's Retinal, which was a surprise one as well. I didn't know so many of you put your faith in Retinaldehydes, so that was interesting, which is good, I think, why we're going to kind of go through this deep dive on what retinoids are, what they do. And then, of course, we had other players in here. Actually, another one that surprised me, so Geek and Gorgeous was next. I think it was tied with Olay 24. Olay got a lot of love. Olay Regenerous, the whole line got a lot of love. Then La Roche-Posay Redermic, and then the Medicate was up there. I might have misspoken about something either. But either way, yeah, Retinaldehydes really made a strong appearance on the list. And that really surprised me. Altreno, so just some other notables. I think they're interesting. So of the prescription named tretinoins, which I actually separated. So all the tretinoins that were in that main category were just tretinoins. That was just people paying tretinoin and then Y for some of them. Then I separated out because then there were some of the branded ones like Altreno versus some of the teledermatology companies like Apostrophe. What is it? Agency and I can't remember the biggest one right now. It's, I don't remember. But all of those actually had the same amount of votes. So all of those tretinoins were from the teledermatology companies were actually equivalent. They all had the exact same amount of votes, and they all were preferred because of the customizability and the added ingredients and tweaks that come along with that, which I think is fair and respectable. But all of the tretinoins in the main category were actually completely separate and unique as far as just being labeled, boom, tretinoin. I'll actually post these results up as well into another community post on our YouTube channel, which is what I'm going to try to start utilizing more. Just because we want to interact with you all as much as possible. We're super appreciative of you all as are part of our community. And along with that, I think the community posts are going to be a nice way to kind of keep in touch throughout the month, whether it's weekly or something like that. Not only to get your opinions on things, but put out our opinions on things when we can't have time to make a full video on it. But then also to talk about things that we might incorporate into videos or into YouTube lives as well. And I think Dr. Shaw is actually going to get on here as well. Not today, but he is going to get on some YouTube's live with us in the future too. It's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait. Also got a new mic. Just a little teaser there, which is some new form content that you may be seeing coming your way as well. Oh, okay. Let's see. All right, so then, okay, so we talked about the results just briefly from your poll, and we will talk about some more of those products. Additionally, we'll talk about some new retinol products I've loved. For some reason, I've had probably about 10 different retinol products arrive at my door over the past month or so. And so I've given a good look to some of those. I definitely have my favorites and have some of my least favorites regarding some of those, but I'm just gonna share my favorites with you. I'm still at a point where I kind of feel bad knocking some products that I don't like if they gave it to me. That may change, but maybe not. But if I recommend it, I really do like it. Before we get into those retinol favorites, I'm gonna take a step back and let's talk about each of these retinols. So I feel like sometimes it's hard for people to navigate like which retinol is right for me, what makes it unique, why is retinol different than for Retinal or different than a Retinil, which is pretty much that A313 product exclusively, versus prescription ones, Tretinoin and now Trifarotene. So let's kind of organize this and start from the beginning. So I'm actually gonna pull up notes, which I thankfully don't often do, but again, this is a lot of detail here. And we can start from the beginning. And so when I say beginning, it's kind of gonna go in a stepwise progression until we get to the prescription ones in terms of really gentleness coinciding with weakness, and then moving forward in terms of strength, effectiveness, and then in prescription, it all gets a little jumbled, mostly because of the newest player in the game. So first off comes the Retinal Esters. Again, that A313 from what the French pharmacy is the product that seems to get the most love out of this family. Retinal esters are perhaps the weakest form of retinoid because they have to be activated and converted 3 times to become tretinoin, which is then active in the skin and exerting all of its effects. Interestingly about retinal esters as well, that's the form of retinol in the skin that's actually stored. So that's what retinol can back convert into and store itself if it does need to be released later. So all in all, for retinal esters, I really don't think there's a lot of evidence showing that they're very helpful clinically, whether it's for acne or photoaging. There are a decent amount of studies, because I've spent this last week or two just reading about retinoids. It's been all of my spare time, which is fine, I love it. But as far as retinal esters, there's a lot of back and forth in the studies. Is it effective? Is it not effective? Can it help? It's really conflicting evidence about that. So I wouldn't hang my hat on a retinal ester product thinking that it was going to give me good results. Again, or not again, because I said it in a video I haven't posted, but people seem to swear by this A313 product. If you want to try it, God bless, go for it. But I think overall it's the most gentle perhaps, but perhaps the most weak form of retinol you can use. And moving forward in that conversion step, so retinil then converts to retinol, and we all know retinol. This is kind of the staple over-the-counter ingredient. This has some inherent mechanisms for being more gentle as well. So one, it requires 2 steps to be converted from retinol to retinal to tretinoin, and then also retinol does something unique, and I'm kind of just obsessed with this little tidbit, is that retinol can be converted and stored in the skin if you get too much. So like if you put too much retinol in your skin, more so than your skin can actually use, then it actually gets stored again as retinal esters. And what happens too, once your skin kind of burns through the retinol it's utilizing, is that converts it forward in the path. It actually can mobilize those stores again. So this is a 2-way conversion. So retinol can go to retinal esters, and then retinal esters can go back to retinol and be used when the levels are low. So it actually has a nice inherent mechanism for a slower release. And I know that there is slow release retinol, which even further, I guess, modifies it to make it more gentle. But it has that own property within itself. So not only does it have 2 activations to become active, which helps it be weaker and perhaps more gentle, but it also has a storage component, which helps it be weaker and gentle. So overall, I think retinol has a lot of evidence that it can be effective, especially for photoaging, more than acne. There is a study, if not, I think it's 1 study, maybe 2, that it can be effective for photoaging comparably to tretinoin longer term. I don't think that's going to be consistent for everybody, but again, it's a more gentle option with a lot of evidence for photoaging. So that's retinol. So we did retinil, now retinol, and then there's retinal. So retinal or retinaldehyde requires only 1 step of conversion to go to tretinoin. Now, from the products you all picked, again, I was, again, a little bit surprised about this, but you all loved your retinaldehydes. And I think that actually speaks to the public's intelligence when it comes to skincare ingredients. Dr. Shah and I were talking about this yesterday when working on a separate project, is that people just know a lot about ingredients, because most of the reasons you all put these retinaldehydes and what you commented in the comments, again, whether on my IG or on the YouTube, was actually speaking to the fact that it needs 1 conversion to be active, and therefore you felt like it was working better for you. And I think that's actually pretty impressive, and it is possible as well. So again, retinaldehyde with the one conversion becomes active tretinoin. From the studies, we know that it actually must be converted to be tretinoin to be active. Retinaldehyde itself, like others, has no inherent activity. It also has a controlled release mechanism in it. So retinaldehyde, when it's converted by the cells, is only converted at a specific time in the skin cell's metabolic cycle. So not all of it moves forward at once. So retinal, although perhaps stronger than retinol, can be decently gentle as well. It just has that slow release, again, built into how your skin processes it. Now, there are some studies showing that perhaps it's less irritating than tretinoin. Some studies saying that maybe it's as effective as lower to moderate strength tretinoin. I think, again, there's not enough evidence to really fully be behind that. So I would put retinaldehydes and retinal products kind of exactly where you had it, middle of the road. You can't tolerate a tretinoin, great, go with retinal. But if you can tolerate retinol and you want to move forward but are not able to move all the way forward, that's, again, you'll find yourself at retinal. Totally fine. Again, the products you picked there, the Medicate Crystal Retinal and the Avene Retinal Intensive Cream were your two favorite products in that line. Now moving forward from retinaldehyde, we can go a couple of ways. I suppose just to keep it structured, we'll go to tretinoin. So tretinoin, or all-trans retinoic acid, is active in the skin. Once it's absorbed, it gets to work right away. Now, because of that, it can be pretty irritating for some people. And again, there are different strengths or different vehicles, and there's some modifications which we'll talk about, which can help decrease how irritating it is while maintaining its effectiveness. But when it gets to work right away, it actually also works non-selectively. So it works on all of the retinoic acid receptors, so RAR receptors, which again kind of lends to its irritancy. Now, with both of those things, like, okay, well, why use tretinoin? If it's that irritating, if it has both those things that make it irritating, why do people use it? It's because it's the GOAT, the greatest of all time. It has the most evidence, decades of experience with it. And so I think something we don't appreciate, especially over the counter products, is, let's say you're buying a retinol. Well, you don't actually know how much retinol is often in these products. And you're actually, without thinking about it, being like, okay, this retinol is carrying it. I'm anticipating the results from this retinol. Same with tretinoin. We can consistently anticipate that you're going to, or a person is going to get the expected results from it because of all that research, because of the decades of experience, and perhaps it's something built into the tretinoin itself. But I think people can expect to get the results, whether it's from acne or photoaging, from tretinoin very consistently. And so I think people who are able to tolerate it, which apparently a lot of you are, and which is awesome, you're getting amazing results. And actually some of my favorite comments in the poll we took were people who were kind of shared their journey through tretinoin and how long it took for it to become active. And for most people it was about a month. So a lot of you said about 12 months to a year, you just looked and your skin was transformed. And I love seeing that. So tretinoin really has consistency and expectations that you can really count on. Now, there are some modifications to tretinoin, which is why I think Dr. Shaw and I have talked about Altreno a couple times. So Altreno is a prescription product. It's FDA approved for acne, but it's a 0.05 tretinoin. Now, this has multiple things in it, and this is a micronized form of tretinoin. So there's micronized and there's microspheres. A lot of nuance that's a bit beyond me, but some of it is to do with particle size. And it does a couple of things for it. It helps with absorption, it helps with penetration, it helps it spread more evenly across the skin, so there's not hot spots like some of the literature says, where you get like a concentrated area of tretinoin, which makes an irritated spot on your skin, whereas maybe other areas don't have as much. And it also makes it photostable, which is one of my favorite things about the product, because for someone who is always in a hurry or forgetful or something like that, it's nice to have a photostable retinol or retinoid that you could use in theory if you needed it. Well, I mean, honestly, or you could use that along with some other ones that we'll talk about in the daytime. And some studies did have these being used in the daytime because they are photostable. So it adds a lot of flexibility there. And in addition, when you get a micronized form of tretinoin, oftentimes you can mix it with something like benzoyl peroxide, so you don't have to worry as much about layering. And even if it's not a problematic ingredient like benzoyl peroxide, you don't have to think as hard about, do I need to let this set, let it dry, before I layer it with something else. So all of that just lends to like real life flexibility and ease of use. Plus it has hyaluronic acid, glycerin, hydrolyzed collagen, and then this matrix, which again helps with the release. So I always say this about this product, it's kind of like over-the-counter elegance meets prescription effectiveness, and that's why Altreno is one of my consistent ones that I use regularly. So that's our tretinoin journey. So we hopped from over-the-counter, working our way up the pathway to tretinoin, and then we're actually going to go back a little bit because there are a couple of ingredients over the counter that we still need to hit. One of which, let's do this one first actually. Let's do Granactive Retinoid. And there's a reason. So Granactive Retinoid is an ester form of tretinoin basically, of all trans-retinoic acid. Now, Granactive, it isn't in a lot of products. The Ordinary, I think, is the one where people know it best. And a few of you did vote for that as being your favorite retinoid. And I think how a lot of it does have to do with the hype. Because it is an ester form of all trans-retinoic acid, the expectation is that it's performing like tretinoin, but you don't have the irritation from it. And a lot of that comes from lab-based studies showing that it can activate some of the same receptors, activate some of the same collagen growth pathways, decrease the matrix metalloproteinases, blah, 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 and work just like tretinoin, but be less irritating even at higher concentrations. So where do I fall on this? So I think Granactive Retinoid is promising. There's actually very little data, and the data that's there is mostly published by the industry. There are extremely few peer-reviewed studies, and most of those are actually in the acne space. So for Granactive Retinoid, I think it's too early to tell. I'm definitely not sold on it as being a tretinoin alternative, but I do think, just based off of how it works and some of the studies that are out there, I think it can be effective. I think it probably is more gentle than tretinoin, but I certainly wouldn't expect it to hold up to tretinoin in terms of effectiveness and all of the results that people consistently get with that. And then moving from there, then we have Adapalene, which is our last one in the over-the-counter space for today. So Adapalene is another photostable retinoid. So it was studied in a couple of different ways, whether exposed to UV light or actually put outside on a bench just to test how well it does in the sun, and it works very well. So again, you don't have to worry about that part of it. It was originally studied in acne, was originally prescription, is now over the counter, and it consistently works for acne. I think it's the best over the counter ingredient available over the counter. Plus, because of its stability, you can combine it with benzoyl peroxide, which is why there are combination products with it for people's ease of use. It's consistently less irritating than tretinoin as well. Just across all studies and real life experience, Adapalene is better tolerated than tretinoin. And some of the studies show that Adapalene, the higher strength Adapalene can be as effective as low to moderate strength tretinoin. So yeah, sure, maybe for some people, especially for acne, it's as effective as low strength tretinoin. Additionally, most of the studies done in acne, but there are certainly enough studies with Adapalene showing that it can be helpful for photoaging as well. And so I think if you want to use it either way, it's very reasonable. It's fairly inexpensive. Again, if you have acne or someone who has acne, it's a no-brainer. If you're looking for an over-the-counter ingredient, it's the best thing you can get. Okay, so now we've got our last two for prescription ingredients, tretinoin, or prescription retinoids, and then we'll go into the Q&A just so we can interact a little bit more. The next one we'll do, though, is Tazarotene. So Tazarotene comes in a couple different strengths. That's Altreno again. They look very similar. There's Tazarotene. This one's a Raslo, the brand. But there are a few different brands. So this one, the reason I think this one actually came out and had some staying power, it was the first retinoid to actually have a technology that caused it to evenly disperse across the skin, similar to what micronizing tretinoin does for it. So it again avoided those hot spots. Actually, what's funny is a lot of their literature about Tazarotene talks about minimizing irritation, which I think is ironic because I don't think that's what it's known for now. And I think it's actually probably known best for maybe being more effective, working a little more quickly. But a lot of people deal with irritation from this, just in my personal opinion. Now, Tazarotene, again, this one's photostable, which makes, again, it a flexible product or flexible ingredient. Definitely studied best in acne space. It is actually really well studied in psoriasis. So in another video I did on my Instagram, I put it out, yeah, you can use these for psoriasis. Tazarotene is the one that's really been studied in that space because we talk about how these things normalize keratinization and can thicken the skin when it needs to thicken, thin the skin, most of the stratum corneum, that top layer when it needs to be thinned, but it really normalizes it and brings it to a middle ground that's helpful. And then there are studies with Tazarotene comparing it to tretinoin, And again, some of them say it's more effective, some of them say it works a little quicker. They tend to have the same endpoint, so with long-term use, they seem to meet at the same place. Anecdotally, maybe it's a little more effective, but I do think it's more irritating, just personally. So I think depending on the person, if you're really looking for like the most effective option, you don't have any irritation, you've got great resistant skin, I think Tazarotene is definitely something you can explore, especially if acne is what you're using it for. And then the last prescription one goes to Trifarotene. So this is Aklief. I actually get a lot of questions about people from this on social, a lot more than I would have maybe thought. But it is novel, and it was the first, I think, acne one to be approved in 20 years. It actually had a previous approval for something called lamellar ichthyosis, which is really dry, like a inherited really dry skin, a severe form of it. But this one is very specific. So the whole selling point of Trifarotene or Aklief is that it's extremely specific, and it works on the retinoic acid receptor gamma. Therefore, they think that the other receptors, beta, which like Tretinoin, Tazarotene, Adapalene all work on, might be responsible for a lot of the irritation, and you may not need activation of that beta receptor to get the results. So along comes Aklief, says, hey, we will only work on the gamma receptor. Physiologically, it makes sense. Their studied for acne, really. It's just in the acne space right now, that it was very effective for acne. I didn't find much on like head-to-head irritation, but physiologically they say it's less irritating. And real world experience though, this is where I think this one has made its mark on me, is I've seen a lot of people tolerate Trifarotene or Aklief where they have not been able to tolerate other retinoids, and for some people, any other retinoids. So I do believe that this actually really does deliver in how it says it's going to be gentle for more people, not everybody, but more people, and then also be extremely helpful for acne. And then I do believe that they're coming out with some photo aging studies on it because we don't have any data on that or much data. But I expect that it's going to show help because it seems like this photo aging benefit from retinoids is just across the group, across the class. So that was our retinoid journey. So we went through Retinal Esters to Retinol to Retinaldehyde to Tretinoin with modifications to Granactive Retinoid to Adapalene to Tazarotene to Trifarotene, and that's it. I think that's all the big players in the topical retinoid space. They all have a unique benefit. Again, I'm going to try to syndicate this on my Instagram into a 1-minute video just so it's easier to reference back to. I'll be working on that when we're done. But that's it. And then we can talk too about ways to use this if you're interested in that. I mean, there are retinoid cleansers. I have my own opinions about that. I don't know about Dr. Shaw. Of course, leave-on products are just the staple of it. But that's it. Now, let's see. Now we'll go to some of the questions and everything here as well. It is great to see you all. Again, sorry for the long time since the last live. We're actually really working hard to build in a schedule. Both Dr. Shaw and myself are just adjusting to new schedules, new lifestyles, and so I'm actually optimistic that we're going to get something really concrete, not only for the YouTube videos, but also some new YouTube content we're working on, and then also more lives and just, again, more through the community page. It's going to be great. All right, so now let's go through some of the questions. Is this live going to be uploaded as a regular video? It is. So thankfully it auto-saves at the end of this, and I intend on this being uploaded so we can also reference it back. I also go back and timestamp all of these videos. It can take a few hours, so I don't expect to timestamp this until maybe Monday or tomorrow at the earliest, but know that it will be eventually timestamped too so people can go through this. Okay, so let's go and dig into this. From Amanda, for melasma, will Tretinoin help lighten? Can it be used in combination with azelaic acid? So absolutely. Melasma is a unique condition where we get pigment. Typically it's hormonally mediated, but there's also a vascular component, which makes it really, really, really difficult to treat. That would be a good video. I don't think we've done a dedicated melasma video. It may not differ much though from our other dark spot videos, so maybe it's not worth the time, but melasma is very difficult to treat. And yes, Tretinoin can be foundational in it because it affects all the steps of dark spot production and presence. Yes, it can be used with azelaic acid. As always, the caveat is going to be irritation if your skin can tolerate it. And then things like hydroquinone, a burst of that, photo protection, tinted sunscreens is paramount. I've seen some really good results from microneedling and PRP with melasma. I put up a microneedling video on my Instagram that did pretty well, and I got so much pushback from professionals, especially in other countries, saying you shouldn't microneedle with melasma. And consistently now, the literature really supports its use, not only alone, but especially as an adjunct, where microneedling elevates other things like PRP or the use of other ingredients in the setting of melasma. And I've seen some really amazing results with that. So that's something to explore, but I would definitely do that judiciously and with someone who's done it before, because even microneedling, although safe, can cause post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation, which of course would undo everything you're trying to do. Oh, nice. Tennessee, Bangladesh, Iraq, India. I love it. Virginia. It's so good seeing you all. Can I use acetretin? Cretin. What's that one? Cretin to treat blackheads. Yeah, that's tretinoin. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Acretin is a tretinoin product. I don't really use it, but it definitely can treat blackheads. It's great for it because it helps the skin cells turn over, which is going to prevent those pores from getting clogged. And it's also going to decrease oil production, which is going to help stop the problem in the first place. And another thing too is not every acne treatment works the same or works as effectively. So for something like LED masks, which we've talked about extensively, that doesn't help blackheads. It only helps inflammatory lesions. But yeah, tretinoin will help with that. That's a tough one. So, Dr. Maxfield, can you tell me something about hyperpigmentation due to boils all over the body? Will tretinoin even out the body complexion? Oof, that sounds extremely difficult. So it's tough. It's almost in a more extreme version of like what people deal with body acne and post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation from that, because what you're left with is a very large body area that would need a lot of product. And honestly, a lot of time. So for anything, the underlying cause has to be treated first before you can move on to treating anything else afterwards. And so as long as the underlying cause of whatever was going on has resolved, then yes, you can dedicate your energy and time into treating the dark spots thereafter. And for that, yeah, and you could. So I mean, in theory, you definitely could. We prescribe tretinoin and topical retinoids for acne on the body consistently, expecting it to work consistently, and so dark spots should be no exception. I do find that it uses a lot of product though, and for some people, I thought it was more expensive for people than it was. I did something about mixing with retinoids or using retinoids with moisturizers to help it go further. Although imperfect and sacrificing efficacy, it can help the product go farther. But a lot of people said that it's no problem, the cost isn't that bad where they are, or insurance covers it. So it may use a lot of product. And a concern would be you're going to absorb a lot more of it. So for someone of childbearing age, you shouldn't be using it to begin with, but you do absorb more of it if you're going to use it on your whole body. But really, it should be effective in particular. From Kelly G, is it true that tretinoin formulated with another ingredient is less effective? So this actually gets into the whole formulation thing. Actually, one of the big examples of this is tretinoin and alpha hydroxy acids. People hate this combination, but really the major limitation is irritation. I'm not sure that it's really one makes the less effective, even in that setting. And then niacinamide was another one, I think, where people were worried about that for a long time. Vitamin C, of course, has its own inherent problems with anything. So no, I think when people create a product, especially when you're looking at some of the bigger brands with a lot of R&D behind it, they examine all that. You can take an ingredient, and when you combine it with another ingredient, there are always going to be problems. But especially if it's formulated in the same product, we're kind of at the mercy of the brands and assuming they've done the R&D to show that it's stable and effective. But that's why I think sometimes using something like a L'Oreal product or a Rock, I guess, would have an upside or a benefit as opposed to maybe something even like The Ordinary, where I'm not sure the R&D is the same. Whereas I know like L'Oreal is very, very heavily invested in making sure their products are effective before bringing them into market. Oh, from Gabriel Vega. Can retinol or tretinoin help with redness? Yes, modestly. So one of the most difficult things to treat, and one of the things I get asked a lot for, is how to get rid of the redness after acne. And it's kind of just a dull background of redness, usually no clear dilated vessels, but it's really difficult to treat. Retinoids can be helpful, azelaic acid can be helpful, but despite that, it still takes time because a lot of that is just that post-inflammatory change. The vessels are a little dilated and it just takes time to calm that down. So yes, it could in theory be helpful. Make sure you're not aggravating it or irritating it worse. That would again undo everything you're doing, but it's still gonna take time no matter what. Let's see. 21, struggling with hormonal acne, using spironolactone, limacycline, and Epiduo. So I think limacycline, I don't know if that's, I mean, it must be a tetracycline derivative. And then not much change, but started spironolactone 2 weeks ago. And that's the kicker. So that's the most important part of this whole thing, is that unfortunately for acne, it takes time to reprogram the skin cells turn over slowly. So for most acne treatments, if not all of them, people do typically get better and see improvement within a period of weeks. But for most acne treatments, as well as dark spot treatments and things like that, you're gonna be waiting on average, I think 2 to 3 months before you really see how well those ingredients or products are gonna do for you. And so that I think is the most important thing there. Yeah, and so there's a good query from here. So KDG said, faded by topical says not to use with retinol. Is that just because of irritation, or do the ingredients react badly to each other? And so this reminds me of another video I did. So it's like I feel like it's story time in my mind. I'm just going through like, oh, I posted this about this and I got this feedback. But I think from topicals and faded, and where they say not to use it with acids and retinoids, I think the main thing is irritation. You'll see this with a lot of brands too, a lot of brands. When you read the back of the label for a niacinamide product or a vitamin C product, it may say not to use it with the other. And I think mostly that's brands kind of just trying to be judicious and safe. Like they don't want the people buying their product to be using it with other ingredients that are going to mess up their skin barrier and cause irritation, because a person's going to blame it on the new product, and then people aren't going to want to buy it because they think it causes irritation. And faded has a lot of ingredients that treat dark spots, and it in and of itself can be irritating. So my personal opinion is that they put that on there because they want to minimize the risk of irritation for people who are using their product. With that being said, I personally do combine something like topicals with retinoids, even alpha hydroxy acids, in a skincare routine, because they really do complement each other well. The ingredient lists really complement well, but the main important caveat there is the irritation. But in fact, yeah, I love topicals as an alternative product that's just loaded with ingredients to simplify dark spot routine. But dark spot routines really do need something like a retinoid, or would or could benefit from an acid or an exfoliating acid as well. But definitely can be irritating. So you have to be very cautious and know your skin well and introduce things slowly. Let's see here. Can I use a CeraVe cleanser with faded? Well, I think I missed the first part of that question. CeraVe cleanser, I don't know if it's like an SA cleanser with faded, but yeah, generally cleansers are pretty well tolerated. For example, benzoyl peroxide, which you cannot use with just normal tretinoin because it oxidizes it and activates it. You actually still can use it in the same routine, just not at the same time. So it's, again, common practice for someone to use a benzoyl peroxide cleanser, rinse it off, wait a few minutes, and then use a retinoid, like tretinoin on this, well, I guess in the evening, use tretinoin out in the skin at night. And that's acceptable. Cleansers inherently kind of lose their active ingredients for the most part when they're rinsed off, you know. Which is why, I guess I'll get to this anyway, even though no one asked, which is why I'm not really sold on the idea of these retinol cleansers. And so we talked about it in one video. There is something called short contact time treatment with a retinoid, where, as it sounds, you use a retinoid on your skin for a very short period of time and you rinse it off and it's still effective. That period of time, I think, is longer than most people expect. So even when you cleanse your face and you're trying to leave it on, let's say it has vitamin C and antioxidants, it's nice, it's lathery. If you wait for 10 seconds, 20 seconds, that probably feels like an eternity to do that before you rinse it off. Now with Tretinoin, one of the short contact time therapies with that was 30 minutes before rinsing it off. So if you had a retinol cleanser, or if a Tretinoin cleanser came out, really you'd have to lather it on, leave it on for 30 minutes and then rinse it off. Now there are some faster absorbing retinoids like Tazarotene. There was a short contact treatment. I think people use it on average about 3.5 minutes before rinsing it off. But even then, leaving a cleanser lathering up for 3.5 minutes and rinsing is a pretty long time. Some people in that study used it, I think, as little as 30 seconds. So I think that would be the bare minimum time to leave a retinoid cleanser on the skin before rinsing it. But even then, Tazarotene absorbs extremely well. That's part of its nature. It absorbs extremely well, like Adapalene. Even Adapalene takes up to 5 minutes to absorb through the perifollicular openings. So still, I'm like, if you're gonna use a retinol cleanser, I think you have to use it and leave it on the skin. I would say at least 5 minutes before rinsing it to be effective. And that's a long time for someone trying to get through their morning, in my opinion. So I'm not a huge fan of that idea. I could change my mind on that. More data could come out. I might be missing something. But right now, I'm not on board with the retinol cleansers. Let's see what else here. Does perfect skin exist? I was going to say maybe when you're born, but people, when you're born, you have something called lanugo hairs, which are really fine little hairs on the skin. You'd probably hate that if you were an adult and had little lanugo hairs on your skin. So no, perfect skin doesn't exist. It never exists. We're all going to get older. Dr. Shah is going to get older much slower than me because he doesn't go outside as much as I do. But no, it doesn't exist. Let's see. Oral supplements for body pigmentation. There are really not a lot. So glutathione would probably, I mean, it's not really, is it a supplement? I don't know. I guess so. It kind of functions as an antioxidant. Glutathione would be the closest thing to it, I guess. Glutathione has been studied topically, orally, and IV. I know the IV use of glutathione is certainly more prevalent in other countries than where I live. And I'm not a big fan of that. Oral supplementation has been shown to be helpful by enlightening skin pigmentation. And then there are ingredients, derivatives of hydroquinone, which can actually bleach the whole body. And that's definitely not something that's done regularly. The person where that's usually done with is someone who has like extreme vitiligo and they have just only a few dark splotchy patches left. And at that point they're like, well, let's just finish it off. And they just kind of turn the rest of their skin to lighter pigment just so it's homogeneous. But yeah, that's all I can think of. I can't really think of any other supplements that would significantly work. Oh, you reminded me. Where are you? Cassie Vega. Biossance seems like a really good product from Anne. Someone else must have answered something else. So let me talk about some of these retinols really quick that I found and really liked. Where did I write those down? Because I have some of them behind me. Amazingly, I've lost one or two of them already, which is absurd. I don't know how that happened. But these are some retinols that might be worth checking out. So this is really kind of in a weird place for me to throw this here, but that's okay. We're just gonna have to deal with it. I'll start with the more expensive one first, and the Biossance one, because you did talk about it. So Biossance had their phytoretinol, which was a bakuchiol product. It had no retinol in it, but it had retinol-like ingredients. Now they have their squalane retinol night serum. And this is, let's see here, I have all the prices here. So this is $72 per ounce. So it's definitely not a budget retinol, but I mean, Biossance isn't a budget brand. They just make nice products, they're elegant, and you expect that from them. So this, like all their products, has their sugarcane derived squalane, which squalane, I know we did our whole video on that. I actually appreciate this ingredient more and more the more I find it in products. So this is an oil, but it actually absorbs deeper into the skin, into the dermis. So even though it hydrates like an oil, it kind of goes on and absorbs like an oil. It absorbs deeper and it doesn't leave a residue on the skin. But you probably can't see this, but the Biossance Retinol is a really nice, I don't know, I think it's a pretty yellow color. and it has antioxidants. It has a time-released retinol. Again, like we talked about earlier, helps it be a little less irritating. And the thing I like most about this, though, kind of like all Biossance products, it just melts into your skin. It just melts. And so the texture, I'd have to give an A+, like a solid A+. It's an A+ texture for me. And then it has retinal, glycerin, and allantoin. And it's fragrance-free, but sometimes they have like fragrant ingredients. I don't know if this is one of those, but it's very hydrating. I love that one. It's very good. Now, I'll go back to a budget-friendly option. So this is a brand, what is this, Indeed Labs or something like that? I hadn't used any of their products before. Yeah, Indeed Labs Retinol Reface. So this one's 20 bucks per ounce. And I do love this one. So again, who knows if you can see it or not, but I'm gonna try. This one is a lightweight kind of, I'd say lotion. Also has microspheres, so also along the same line with a slow release. But this one goes on like a really light lotion. I like this one because of some of the complementing ingredients. It has bakuchiol and peptides. So I think that's a really dynamic trio. Adding retinol, bakuchiol, and peptides, they have like all three have a really broad spectrum of action, and they really all complement each other towards that anti-aging goal. So I really like that. Another thing that's unique about this one, it has an airless pump. So what was that other product? La Roche-Posay, they had that moisturizer we talked about forever ago. But the airless pumps are nice because they minimize contamination and might help the products last longer. So that's something as well. Decreases wasted product because less will be left at the bottom of the packaging when you're done. And this has absolutely no tacky residue, which is one of my a couple of my problems with some of the other retinols I've been trying lately. They had a really tacky residue I just didn't enjoy. Let's see here. The one I lost. Wait, where's the other one? So two that I can't seem to find at the moment, which if you saw my skincare room, you would completely understand. But one of which is actually called by UrbanSkin. So UrbanSkin has this Retinol Rapid Repair and Dark Spot Treatment. It's $26 for an ounce. Now, listen to this ingredient list. It has retinol, squalane, jojoba, kojic acid, niacinamide, alpha-arbutin, ascorbic acid in a really low concentration. I think is really low on the ingredient list, along with glutathione, azelaic acid. I mean, that's awesome. So when you get a list like that, it's kind of approaching topicals level, the brand, because it just consolidates a skincare regimen into one product and it makes it extremely convenient. Again, price is good, $26 for 1 ounce. And this one also felt really lightweight, another lightweight moisturizing vehicle, also fragrance free. So UrbanSkin Retinol Rapid Repair and Dark Spot Treatment, another one that I loved lately. And then the last one that I'll talk about, this was another, I think this is a pretty new brand. I really had some hit or miss on a couple of their products, but one of the ones that hit for me was the Community 66 Resurfacing. So the 66 in this brand is like their 66 days to create a new habit. That's the founder's whole take on it. But it's $35 for 1.7 ounces. How much is that per ounce? I don't know, you do the math. It sounds similar to the price point of some of the other ones. This one has retinol with some really good antioxidants: vitamin E, resveratrol, ferulic acid, centella asiatica, caffeine, niacinamide, licorice, peptides like hexapeptide 14, and it's also fragrance free. So again, same thing, kind of felt like a lightweight lotion, sat nicely, $35 for a larger size container. That one's a really nice one as well. So those were some of the retinols I've tried lately. I did try a lot of other ones that I really wasn't a fan of. So, but that's a lot of that goes to texture issues. I like lighter things that sit lighter on the skin. I don't like things that feel particularly oily. So some of that's just anecdote. Okay, now back to the Q&A. That was the last thing I wanted to talk about. You just reminded me when you mentioned Biossance. From Aya, salicylic acid and glycolic acid face wash in the morning, and then Epa Duo in the evening. So, what's the question? Sounds fine to me. As far as medicated face washes for acne, you have really three to four major options, I think. You have benzoyl peroxide, which is the most effective, salicylic acid, then glycolic acid could perhaps be a substitute in there, and then if you really stretch it, which I tend to. Tea tree oil could also fit that same role. It kind of has a similar niche as benzoyl peroxide. So yeah, using one of those cleansers in the morning, and then Epiduo in the evening, which is benzoyl peroxide and Adapalene. That's also is fine in the evening. Usually, it doesn't matter. You really can't go wrong with that because again, Adapalene is one of those that's stable in the morning or night, so there's really no wrong way to use it. Alex, what's a safe age to start using retinoids? So, it depends on the cause. I think a part of this whole thing is when we talk about safety or when you consider safety of a product, it's always like risk versus benefit. So there are some horrible conditions out there, one of which is called a harlequin ichthyosis, and it's terrible. Like a little baby will be born if they survive that portion, and then their skin will be thick plaques peeling off. And so as a doctor and as a dermatologist, you might actually start this infant or this newborn on a retinoid because you're weighing a life-threatening condition with the side effects of an oral retinoid. Now, the only reason I say that is now we move forward into using a topical retinoid where the risks are actually pretty low. So the systemic absorption, even with one that absorbs really well of Tazarotene, is thought to be maybe the same as what your endogenous levels are of retinols in your whole body, or something like 6% of what you apply topically might be absorbed even if it's under occlusion. So the absorption for topical retinoid, and that one's a category X, that's pregnancy category X, even though the absorption is modest. But topically, the risk is really just irritation, and then if you're pregnant, in theory, it could get to the fetus, and that's what you don't want. So the risk tends to be pretty low. Most of these prescription ones are FDA approved or a lot of them are FDA approved down to the age of 9 in the setting of acne. So generally we'll recommend if it's for acne, you really can comfortably use a prescription tretinoin or something like that down to the age of 9. And then the last part of that is what are you trying to treat? So that's for acne. Now, if you're going for photo aging or something like that, you reasonably, I think, could wait till your late teens to really start using that, because you're not at that age, you're really not trying to correct and undo much of the sun damage. Your whole goal really should be to try to prevent the sun damage, because retinoids are more effective, I think, at treating it than preventing sun damage in some ways. Let's see here. Use Retin-A at night and SkinCeuticals ferulic acid during the day. Which moisturizer do you recommend? So, it's such a loaded question. It's so personalized because moisturizers, it all depends on a person's skin type. I mean, it really does. So the vehicle matters in that the more occlusive the vehicle, the more it's going to lock in water. That's one way you can organize it. But the ingredients matter too, because things like ceramide or panthenol, those can help soothe the skin, give the skin ingredients to help repair the skin barrier. But I find what matters most for people is just the texture. It's just a subjective portion, and that's what determines whether a person is going to use their moisturizer consistently. So for someone whose skin leans oily or is oily, the mattifying moisturizers like from La Roche-Posay is one of my favorites. It's perhaps the most mattifying gel lotion moisturizer I've found. But for someone who has drier skin, something like the Kiehl's or the Skin Fix products, those are extremely hydrating, but they feel kind of pillowy and light. So those might be a better option for someone with drier skin, or for someone with extremely dry skin. Like when I go into December, January, my skin is extremely dry and wind chapped from surfing and things like that. So I actually usually switch to the La Roche-Posay Lipicar AP Plus body cream for my face, and it feels great. Whereas in the summer, that would feel horrendous and I would hate it. So it's very personalized, just completely dependent on a person's skin and what sits well with that. Oh, that's interesting. So are there any ingredients that cancel out retinol that we shouldn't use in the same routine? To cancel it out, so cancel out retinol, yes. The main one is actually going to be benzoyl peroxide. And so you said a key thing here, and though that's the same routine, because benzoyl peroxide will cancel out if used at the same time, but not the same routine. So realistically, I think you can use retinol with most ingredients in the same routine if they're separated in space and time. I mean, nothing really just undoes it. Unlike, let's say, copper peptides and vitamin C, or what I believe to be copper peptides and kojic acid, where they have a competing mechanism on tyrosinase, they would work in the complete opposite way. Retinoids really don't have that counterpart. So I don't think you need to worry about anything like that. Let's hear from Adore, Chantel. Hey, Dr. Maxfield, hope you're doing good. All's good here. Can I use a vitamin C in the morning and retinol SA near the orbital? And which sunscreen do you recommend? Wait, vitamin C in the morning, retinol SA near the orbital. Sorry, I'm probably misunderstanding this question just a little bit, but vitamin C in the morning is perfect. You can use vitamin C once a day, twice a day. In the morning is ideal because you're going to maximize the antioxidant benefits, because it's going to help protect your skin from just the daily insults of life. And using it at night, you can use it at night if your skin tolerates it. Excuse me. And it would still be helpful and beneficial. And then as far as retinoids around the eyes, they can be used. The Olay product, the Olay Retinol, is a great eye cream. Actually, in what's that new one I have? Rock has a retinol eye cream that's nice. But there's another one I really like too that I was trying. I don't know, I'll have to think about that one. But regardless, the retinol can definitely be used around the eyes. I think it's a great option around the eyes. I know there's some consideration for it affecting the oil glands in the eyelids. So if you feel like you get dry eyes, just be aware of that and then stop using it. But it definitely can be helpful. Y'all are outrageous with some of these comments. Let's see. Oh, that's an interesting question here. So typical treatment length of oral doxycycline and topical clindamycin with tretinoin use. Completely dependent on the person again, because oral doxycycline is an antibiotic, which, ideally we don't want to use antibiotics long term, in part because we want to impact the gut biome as least as possible. And then also because bacteria can become resistant to it. Now, doxycycline is unique in a way in that bacteria often don't become resistant to it, at least as common as other things like perhaps macrolide antibiotics or clindamycin. And the second part of that too is with acne, there are some dosings where you can actually dose doxycycline under what we call the minimal MIC, the minimal inhibition concentration that kills bacteria. So you can actually use doxycycline at a dose that doesn't actually kill bacteria, but it's still effective for acne. And so for that person, you're actually really not worried about much of any of those long-term risks. But typically, and what I see often is that for people who are struggling with acne, doxycycline and the antibiotics can be used to get those deeper cystic lesions, but they're really there supporting the person's skin as long as they have that problem. So some people take it for quite a long time, or at least on and off, as they're growing and going through these years where they're dealing with acne. And that just kind of complements or even carries the team while the topicals are working on the other parts of acne. So it's very personalized again, which is kind of a common theme, right? Like one of the reasons it's difficult to give a straight answer is because when a person is in front of us, it's about them, their skin, their life, and everything is very personalized and tailored towards them. But in general, things are used kind of deliberately. And so there is some flexibility with how long things are used, how they're used, when they're used. So that's why we kind of try to put out information and not be like, use this now, or like everyone should be using this, because it never works out that way. Let's see. Skin Better Science. Let's see. Oh yeah, so this is a good question. So, where'd that go? Would we recommend for someone who's been using CeraVe Resurfacing Retinol, which again was your favorite over-the-counter retinol collectively across the board. They've been using it for 3 months now, had no irritation, and you want to move up, trying something more effective. So you really could do this any way you want to. For a lot of you, you had jumped into the Retinal space, the Retinaldehyde space, then you can try that Medic product. And then, honestly though, I don't know if that's necessary for most people. I think for someone who's tolerating retinol fine, has given it a good try of 3 months, which is like a perfectly appropriate trial period, going up and trying a lower strength tretinoin prescription one would be a great option. Again, tretinoin just has that body of evidence and the consistent results that I think make it really valuable. So if a person's using tretinoin, I mean, if you can use tretinoin, why not? It's very effective. CeraVe Retinol is a gateway drug. Apparently, it seems to be, doesn't it? So from Raw Ponce, does the mineral oil in Altreno have the possibility of clogging pores? That's an interesting thing because the mineral oil has so many connotations of it, or with it, one of which is that it's comedogenic or pore clogging, and I'm not really sure. I don't think that's really true for most people. So I'd say I would say no. I don't think that's inherent to that ingredient alone. And certainly not, I believe, in the formulation of Altreno as well. The one thing that you do have to know is that the hydrolyzed collagen is fish-derived. So for someone who's allergic to fish, in theory, they could actually get an allergic reaction to topical use. That's really, I think, the more important, unique, random thing about it. That's interesting. Let's see here. Okay. On Accutane, sorry, I'm trying to go through the details of this. Can I use a cream like Array Retinol at night, or is that too much? Don't see my derm until November 30th. So I definitely cannot give direct medical advice on here. No medical professional can. But in general, for someone who's on Accutane, you shouldn't be using any topical retinoids. Accutane really is doing all of the work for the acne, and topical retinoids at that point really are unnecessary. And certainly can be too irritating. Now, at the point of person being on Accutane, you're really focusing only on the acne. That's your priority problem. That's a person's priority problem. And then after that's done, if you really wanted to use a topical retinoid for anti-aging or photoaging or something like that, that's when you make that transition to doing that. Even a month after you're done with that. So I wouldn't use it at all. Tretinoin in my minoxidil solution makes my scalp flaky. Is there anything I can do about it? That's interesting. So I've seen some studies where retinoids may not directly help hair growth topically, but it's definitely in a lot of combination. It's been used in combination with other ingredients and has been studied in combination with other ingredients on the scalp. And in that setting, it seems to help elevate the whole product for hair growth. Now, whether it's tretinoin or whether it's something like seborrheic dermatitis causing your scaliness, I don't know. I would actually probably, if it's from the tretinoin, it must just be from irritation. Just like it can cause irritation, redness, and flakiness on the skin, assumedly and assuredly, it can do the same thing on the scalp. So if that's the case, you might have to find a minoxidil solution without tretinoin, or in theory, you could dilute it down, but then you're diluting a minoxidil and you're kind of wasting your time and money with that. So there are minoxidil solutions without it. There are quite a few of minoxidil products now over the counter. I'd go with a 5% no matter what you get. And alternatively, a person could try to use something like ketoconazole to treat the flaky scalp if it wasn't from the tretinoin itself. And by the way, I watched a Dr. Dre video where she was saying ketoconazole shampoo, Nizoral shampoo over the counter, it really helps volumize your hair. I completely agree with that sentiment. I really agree with that. I used to use a lot of Head and Shoulders. Now I'm using a lot of the Nizoral shampoo. It feels great. Cosmetically, it's great for your hair. I love how it feels. I love how it makes it voluminous. And actually, that's one of the most frequent complaints I get in the office about ketoconazole shampoo is that the prescription shampoo, it really dries out the hair like crazy. And I don't understand what it is about prescription products, especially things like that, where you just can't make it into a nice vehicle or a whole complete complementing shampoo that's nice for your hair as well. But anyway, just saying, the Nizoral shampoo, and now they have a conditioner as well. They actually really do make your hair feel great. So I saw that, she said that, I was like, I completely agree. Raise the roof. Let's see. What about Aklief from Banana Republic? Oh, Banana Republic, I like your clothes. I did talk about Aklief in the beginning. It is more gentle, very selective, very effective for acne. But I will post this too, so you can kind of look into the deep dive on that. From Lisa Pierce, tretinoin for skin cancer prevention. So I think there is some evidence that topical retinoids can help prevent early skin cancers. There are some studies that support that. A lot of the studies really more strongly support the use of oral retinoids in the prevention of early skin cancers. So I think jury's kind of out on topicals. It's certainly not as effective. It can be helpful, and again, there is some evidence to support that, but I think it's somewhat inconsistent. It certainly doesn't harm it. But again, there's enough evidence where certain retinoids topically can help prevent precancers, but not ultra consistently. American sunscreens are lacking from Maria. You're not wrong. I really don't know what the hang up is with the FDA and approving new UV filters in American sunscreens. But with that being said, I'm finding more and more, I wonder if there's some behind me, more and more cosmetically elegant sunscreens in the American sunscreen world that fit nicely, whether tinted or untinted, but still, I don't disagree with you overall at all. That's a lot. So what's my opinion on Tretinoin under the eyes, which this person says, which I can tolerate? That's a lot. I'm very surprised you can tolerate that. You have some of the toughest skin I've heard of. I don't know. I mean, again, irritation really is the limiting factor. In theory, it can cause dry eyes by affecting the oil glands there. I mean, I don't know what to say. Irritation is almost universally the limiting factor there. So, Teresa, I want to have glass skin. What do I do? Glass skin, being a lofty and worthy goal, is often unachievable. But how can you get there? It starts with the foundation of, I'd say, sunscreen, consistent use sunscreen, tretinoin or a vitamin A derivative at night, and a cleanser. Okay, let me organize this. That's like all out of order. Cleanser in the morning, antioxidants like vitamin C, and then a prolific sunscreen and a retinoid at night there. That's like the bare bones of a foundational skincare regimen. And then tweaking it, personalizing it thereafter really is where I think some gains are made. So where all that basic foundation kind of gets you from, let's say, here to here, and you kind of have that logarithmic quick upturn, then adding things like exfoliating or other ingredients or things for dark spots, whatever your skin is dealing with, that's where you make those next steps and elevate your skin from there. From Maggie, when your skin is peeling or flaking from tretinoin, what works well to moisturize and get the flakes off? So the flakes from tretinoin are because the skin is turning over more quickly. Typically, this gets better within a few weeks, although I know for some people it does not. Now the question is, what should you moisturize with to help minimize that? Again, there's really not a huge wrong answer here. I think something with, it just depends on your skin. For someone with oily skin, even a lightweight moisturizer, again, like the mattifying moisturizer from La Roche-Posay, which has become one of my go-tos for the summer, it's enough. It can be sufficient, because even though the vehicle may not be extremely occlusive and lock it in a lot of water, there are a ton of supporting ingredients to provide hydration, and it does help soothe and repair the skin barrier. That's enough for some people. Someone has drier skin, using a thicker cream, even something, just keep it simple. The CeraVe moisturizing cream. I may not give that product enough love. The CeraVe moisturizing cream, it's like that perfect middle ground for moisturizers. It's simple, loaded with hydrating and protecting ingredients. It's heavy-ish, but doesn't sit heavy on the skin. So it's not like a lightweight lotion where I think you lose a lot of your water loss through the skin. It's not heavy like an Aquaphor. It's just right smack dab in the middle. So that's like a perfect medium ground one. From Sonia, azelaic acid and retinol together, is that okay? Yeah, in the same routine, they work very well together. Let's see here. Someone had said, been using tretinoin for over a year and didn't experience any irritation, but now they are. What's going on? It's tough, it's impossible to say, but it's probably something else going on in life, whether it's changing body, changing skin, environmental changes, using other products and other ingredients that kind of pushed that skin barrier over the line. Any of that's possible. But it probably isn't from the tretinoin interacting differently on its own. In fact, there are a lot of studies. In fact, there was another study I was looking at this week that showed at 52 weeks, so what is that? A year, right? 52 weeks, the benefits from the retinoid hadn't plateaued, which means that even long-term, and we knew this already, but long-term, the benefits from retinoids are there. They're sustained, and they might not even plateau at 52 weeks. You might keep getting better and better and better. So I don't think it's anything different with the tretinoin itself. It just might be a product of life or something in life. I buy tretinoin in Mexico for $7. Yeah, it's interesting too, from a lot of the comments that you all left in that poll, it was really cool seeing what's available over the counter, because a lot of you do have access to things that are prescription here, or something that's prescription here or over the counter here might be prescription elsewhere. So it's hard. I don't really honestly know what's available everywhere. Can tretinoin be replaced with Granactive Retinoids? I don't think so. So we talked about this again at the beginning. Granactive Retinoids are an esterified form of, or an ester form of all-trans retinoic acid, or tretinoin. Not a lot of evidence on it though. Most of the studies have been sponsored studies, and not even in peer-reviewed journals. So I'm kind of on the fence about it. It's definitely more gentle. I think that's pretty consistent, but I certainly wouldn't replace my tretinoin if I was tolerating it with Granactive Retinoids. Let's see here. Let's take a look. I'm probably gonna have to go soon because I do have to do a little more work here today before I close it out. So I'll do a few more here, and then we will we'll meet again soon. What's a good time frame for post-inflammatory erythema to improve? This does actually change a little bit by skin tone. So the darker your skin tone, typically the longer dark spots stick around. And I feel like the lighter a person's skin, the erythema tends to be more noticeable. It may not last longer per se, but I think it's more apparent. But typically, again, you're still looking at upwards of 2 months, 3 months sometimes before it completely resolves. But it also depends how strong the injury was itself. If it was just like a mild insult, then the post-inflammatory erythema, the redness, can go away within a matter of days or a week or so. But it's common enough for it to last a month to 3 months, I think. What did I see? Lactic acid on sensitive skin. Is lactic acid okay on sensitive skin with possibly undiagnosed rosacea? Lactic acid might be acceptable for undiagnosed, for sensitive skin, let's say that, because lactic acid of the alpha hydroxy acid family is a little bit more gentle and does have some inherent moisturizing properties. In fact, hey, look, I've got 2 of them. I really do like lactic acid as an ingredient. I think glycolic acid is more effective. I think people see more dramatic results with glycolic acid. But I do like lactic acid. And Dermatology came out, I think it's a new product. I never know, they just show up. But lactic acid refining serum, this is a really nice one. I liked their exfoliating body lotion, which was a lactic acid body lotion before. I already liked this. I think it's great for a moisturizer to help exfoliate your body. But then they have a new lactic acid refining serum for the face. Love this product. Dermatology is a brand I've actually really liked. It's very rare that they'll put something out that just misses for me. But I really like that product. So it's an option for sensitive skin. There are more polyhydroxy acid products now. What is it? Paula's Choice has kind of the key products in the space for a pure polyhydroxy acid product, and I think it's a toner. But there are more polyhydroxy acid products, which is a gentle exfoliator and a toner, and can be used, in a toner or another leave-on product. And then also fruit enzymes can be a gentle way to exfoliate as well. Back to Dermatology, they have that kind of prototypical, I have that too, I don't know where it is, but a pumpkin enzyme, which comes around every fall. That's another exfoliating product that might be nice for someone with really sensitive skin. Let's see. Full video on everything Altreno. May not be the longest video ever. That'd be a nice 5-minute video, but I do like it. Does Altreno or other tretinoin prescriptions work better for anti-aging? So we'll never know. There's never a head-to-head study for Altreno that I know of, or Tazarotene. Well, they don't compare against each other, I'll say. They sometimes will use like a lower strength tretinoin as their competitor. Oftentimes it's just a vehicle or placebo vehicle thing, just to show that it can be helpful. The things that a lot of these bring to the table, or Altreno brings to the table, like I talked about earlier, is really the stability, the hydrating, moisturizing vehicle. And that is the biggest difference. Now, I don't know if that would really lend to it being more effective long term. I would think probably not, because it's the main playing ingredient's the same, tretinoin. And so I think at 24 weeks, which 12 weeks, 24 weeks, 52 weeks, the endpoint's probably going to be the same. I think mostly it's just helping people use it and enjoying it. Let's see. From Teresa P, is it better to use a product that has everything in it or buy separate items? And I think that just depends on a person's lifestyle. Separate items is a lot. It's cumbersome. It's really difficult to use dedicated ingredient products for every step in a skincare routine. I can't do it. I like it in a way. I think it's kind of fun. It makes it more customizable, helps you feel like you have more control about what you're doing. And I do like hyaluronic acid. I was talking about this Dr. Shaw yesterday. We were talking about hyaluronic acid. I do like hyaluronic acid as a standalone serum. It's in every single product, but I still like it as a standalone serum. Because as a humectant, it lets you have more control of putting that one isolated product on damp skin. Plus it feels really cool and refreshing, which is typically what you want out of that product in particular. So no, it's not necessary to use all separate products. If you're a busy person, scatterbrained, hectic, if it's a struggle having a good skincare routine, I highly recommend using a product with 10 ingredients in it, because you're still going to have probably a similar effect from it. It's just easier to incorporate. Favorite tinted sunscreen for men, no coverage. Favorite tinted sunscreen overall tends to be, I don't know. I really like, so I've used MD Solar Science's tinted sunscreen. It's another expensive brand. It's actually a pretty expensive brand, but I really like that sunscreen. I used it in the Dominican and I really liked it. I brought a few with me, or maybe it was somewhere else, but it just blends really nicely. Elta MD UV Clear Tinted is just consistent. It blends really well. It sits really lightweight. I don't feel like it's very oily. It has niacinamide in it, so that one's a really good one. It's just been such a staple for me for so long. Oh, you know what one I really like? I do like the Go Think tinted thingy. It's in our sunscreen video. It's the one I recommended for active skincare, or active skin, the tinted version of it. I use that all the time. So I went surfing this morning, catching the last of the tropical storm that's here, and that was what I used. It's fairly inexpensive. It's not too greasy, doesn't leave a thick cast. Like, you couldn't see it even with my facial hair that I have now. So that's a nice budget-friendly option. I think the brand's called Go Think now. They have like Go Think and Think Sport and all these things off of it the same. But it's the same brand. Best sunscreen with blue light protection. Don't think you need a dedicated blue light ingredient, especially for your skin. But any tinted sunscreen would also have this similar coverage because it's in the visible spectrum. So, is the lactic acid from The Ordinary good for sensitive skin? It's okay. I actually used it recently again. I hadn't picked up the bottle in a long time, but I tried it out again, and I found that because of the vehicle, I think it's not as tolerable for sensitive skin as for ones in a moisturizing vehicle. Like, for example, that same one, the dermatology one, I think is much more tolerable than the Ordinary one. Not necessarily speaking against the lactic acid itself in it, but I do think that the vehicle matters. And so the ones in a moisturizing cream, I think, might be tolerated a little better. All right, I'm going to have to run here. I'm going to do one more, but then I'm going to have to go. But before we do the last question, I want to say thank you again. Just appreciate you being a part of this. Again, we're just super thankful for you all. Love doing this with you, and I can't tell you how much we enjoy this. Okay, that's funny. Okay, first a little story time. So I'll do the story time and then answer one more real question. So from MP, what's your max bench? So actually, when I exercise, I don't do much weights. I don't do much heavy weight, especially not heavy weight. My whole goal with exercise is to be active. I think as long as you're moving, it's good to be good for you. And so I do a lot of lightweight, a lot of calisthenics. I run, hit punching bags, stuff like that. I don't ever really go for much weight. But there is one time I was in the hospital. This was during my second year of internal medicine residency. And in the hospital, there was a bench press competition. I'm sure it was for charity. And I was like, okay, I'll try it. Let's do it. Anyway, it was by weight, like by your weight. And then I won it. I won it for my weight group, my age and weight group, whatever. I was like, oh, that's very cool. But anyway, it was like, I don't know, it was like 310 or something. But I have never done it again. I don't do much weight, so who knows. But I was really afraid I was going to tear a muscle or break or hurt a tendon or something like that, because I'm more for functionality than I am for like trying to max out things. Okay, now back to a real question. That just reminded me of that. Let's see. Let's see. Sorry, so many good questions. I just don't want to. I mean, there's so much. Sorry, guys. There's so many great questions. Vitamin C, 30%? That's a lot. From Teresa's vitamin 30. What product has 30% vitamin C in it? I want to know. Even the Cosrx one has a 23% vitamin C, and that's a lot. 20% is usually like the upper threshold on that. So, yeah. Will rosacea ever be figured out? I don't know. Rosacea has multiple components. We talk about this all the time: the oil gland, acne, ocular. What did I miss? Vascular type, and it doesn't seem to be. My wife has the most. She's very much in that sensitive skin vascular type. It's so difficult to work with. She can't tolerate a single retinol. I have a million retinols, a million of them, and well, not really, like 50 of them, and she can't tolerate any of them. Just skin's so sensitive. So, but there's so much about rosacea we don't know yet. It's such a personalized thing. Oh, that's a good point. So that'll be the last one. So this one said tretinoin for stretch marks. So did we? Yeah, we did tease it out. So no, we didn't. We didn't tease it out. We answered a comment on this. We are actually going to probably do a dedicated stretch mark video soon. When I say soon, it means that we're going to shoot it soon, which means it may be out in a month or so. But we're going to talk about stretch marks in depth. Can tretinoin be helpful? Yes, maybe for the early ones. So stretch marks when they're early, not all the damage has been done. They're typically more red, so things like vascular laser can be more helpful there. Retinoids can be more helpful there. Later though, I don't think retinoids are that helpful. Perhaps there are some studies showing it being helpful, but I think a lot of the evidence does show that later stretch marks really are best treated and see the most benefit from procedures, again, like microneedling, like that video we talked about, or CO2 laser there. But retinoids may not be helpful late in the game there. Okay, that's it. The teaser was we're going to do stretch marks soon. And also too, I guess I'll tease it out here. I'm going to do a big maybe like a week of giveaways here on my Instagram channel, just as a thank you. Maybe next Saturday, soon, next week or something like that. I'm gonna do just a straight week of giveaways with some really big things. Like, again, just super appreciative of all of y'all who've been on this journey with us, with me. So we'll have everything from topical packages, individual products, to like a LED mask, to maybe even like a micro infusion device system. So just as a big thank you to everybody there. So anyway, appreciate your time. Thank you so much for spending your Saturday with me. I love this. I'm super thankful to have you all join me on this journey, and we will see you next time. Also, I will post the results of that, everybody's preferences in terms of retinol products. I will post that in a community post either today or Monday, probably about the same time whenever I get done time stamping this video. Anyway, have a wonderful rest of your weekend, everyone, and we will see you soon.